and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'ma put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, the reason why we are late today, Dr. Pupito!
I begged and I begged. Please don't start the show like this.
Do you know?
Well, I mean, you walked up the stairs and said, nobody go downstairs. What do you want from us?
Yeah, you know who
Look,
we are.
I might have.
We asked you if it was smell or you clogged it. You said clogged, so we had to do what we had to do, man.
It was also the fastest poop I've probably taken in the last 10 years. And of course, the bathroom decides to
Must have just fallen out if it clogged.
go nuts. Sorry, chat. I know that's not the way you guys
Pupito.
wanted to start the show today.
You know,
Hope everybody's awake.
as somebody who's been maybe wrongfully accused and
Oh, maybe wrong.
possibly gaslit for potentially
on.
having clogged the
This
toilet
is reverse
before.
gaslighting.
Oh, is this reverse gaslighting?
Yeah.
Or is this a man who just took a picture of his own shit and then got it on poop court, knowing that you guys would attack me?
Wow.
That didn't happen.
Oh, no, that didn't happen.
Because you wouldn't say maybe before.
Because I
You
am
would
trying
you
to
would
toe
be-
the line of truth and honesty, and I truly don't know how the shit got in the toilet. But I do
Okay,
know
percent chance it was yours.
20.
Oh, no way. I'll take the over on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course you fucking will. I bet you will.
What we do know is it's 100% chance that it was either Berkey or Guapo.
Right.
Yeah, that I think is very strong.
Dun dun.
Honestly, I think 20 is even a little bit high. We won't get back into the details of it all, but
Guys.
as I said in poop court, I had already shit downstairs, so I don't think I double dipped. But hey, stranger things have happened.
It's a lot of work.
Isn't that right, Guapo?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, stranger things.
As long as I get my check, we're good.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Don't worry, the burrito's in the mail.
Wow.
He's upgrading.
Another one.
I think him and Landon have been going to the same meetings.
This is your bit, man.
Just send him a plunger.
I upgraded you from tortillas. You should be happy.
Thank you.
All right, we're off to a great fucking start today.
You should be happy. Aren't you happy?
Yeah, aren't you happy? Landon's happy.
Yes, I'm
Landon
very
shipped
happy.
another tournament yesterday.
He did.
Ooh, good job, Landon.
Congrats.
Thank you, Billie
Congratulations.
Jean King.
Rose on heat.
He's in the fucking cosmos right now. Look at him.
Yeah, you gotta,
He's
I'm chilling.
All right,
those pants.
look.
The pants need to get burned.
give the man his flowers
You can
first.
wear those pants every day you win a tournament, so you're good today.
Okay. So everybody give
But
the man
you
his
can't wash
flowers.
them.
Good job,
won-
Landon.
He won the 250. Looks like it overlaid.
That's like 10x from your last tournament you won.
I know.
9x maybe.
30%
Yeah.
Wait,
the
that means
first.
the
That's
next one will
strong.
be 75K.
That's what
Did
it
it
means.
actually overlay? Because I saw the rebuys and it seemed like, I mean, unless
did.
unless
It
I'm doing
definitely-
can two math.
When you see the payouts all perfect like that, then you
Yeah.
know it's an
Yeah.
overlay.
Yeah,
Well, if
definitely
you go
over
back,
there.
if you go back to the
Yeah,
graphic,
even numbers.
you go back to the graphic and you see in the prize pool, you see top right prize pool 25K.
Well,
And it's a 25K guaranteed. It's most likely going to be an overlay.
there was 107 buy-ins, so
It overlaid by like $400 or something.
yeah.
Something small.
Hey,
Rake back.
break back. Yep.
We'll take it.
Okay.
The one I won yesterday overlaid too. So I guess I can only win tournaments with overlay. I can only win when I have extra
good.
money.
Okay. So now that we've gotten your flowers out of the way,
Thanks.
because champions deserve their.
What's the quote?
The quote is, what is it? Champions keep playing until they get it right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billie Jean King.
Thank
from
you.
Melissa
Thank
Schubert.
you, BJK. You gotta print it out and put it on your
Yeah,
wall.
you gotta have it as like the vision board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
gotta
say
have it ready.
BJ King?
BJK.
BJK.
No, he said BJ King.
BJK.
Wait,
BJK.
who's the BJ King?
Billie Jean, obviously.
Landon is the
BJ King.
Billie Jean is okay. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's have a little intervention for these pants.
Pants are pretty sick.
I think it's time we have a bit of an intervention.
Oh, what's happening?
Or-
Well, we
a
talked about
wash.
this morning in the kitchen, and I think we need to talk about it here. Is it acceptable to wear the same pants every single day?
I like the
I do
pants,
it
but it's a
often.
bit much. Yeah.
Do it often.
Well, yeah,
But I wear them around the house, so.
yeah. I'm
And you
saying
don't sweat in them.
when you're doing a
Well.
podcast. when is Melissa not sweating? Really?
Yesterday was Wash Yo Monkey Monday, so
So today is clean.
we
Right.
cleaned today.
Well, here's the thing. So like these pants I have on, I wear these all the time. But they're just black
they're black,
pants.
Right,
so
we would
nobody
never know.
knows. You would never know.
Notice.
I said
Something
the same
like
thing, Brian.
that.
Yeah.
I said the same thing. I said you
Very
can't have
obvious.
you can't have it both ways, where you are both lazy and you're peacocking.
Right.
Right.
Daily
Exactly.
drivers have to be neutral.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise,
I wear
you
darks. I
know.
wear grays. That way I can just wear the same thing all the time.
Right.
And nobody's the wiser.
Exactly.
Steve Jobs technique.
He's smart.
Right.
Got time to fucking
Shout
worry
out
about
to,
a
What
wardrobe.
you're telling me is I
Shout
just
out
have
to
to
Christian
buy.
Soto for my swag today.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Thanks,
Yeah,
Christian.
He's never getting that one back.
Yep.
So
Did he put that in his will?
Well, he died. Yeah.
That was
He can't
that's
get it back.
that's what he bequeathed
Yeah.
to Guapo.
Generous.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, very generous. So where are we
R.I.P..
at? Where are we at on these Cosmo pants? Because I mean,
What
It's
if he,
like-
what if he just has 20 pairs and you don't know?
well, I mean, I don't think that changes the judgment here. You know, it's
I was
still
saying I can just get 5 of them.
it's still him
As long as
wearing.
they're clean enough.
What is it a clean thing at this point?
I
'Cause-
thought that was what the,
The issue was.
Well, look, I don't care.
or is it a visual thing?
I mean, I hate the pants personally, but they're not shorts, so I appreciate that aspect of them.
You know what they remind me of? Like those guys, like wooks with dreadlocks that go to like Disco Biscuits concerts and do ketamine, and
Right.
they wear those like
Sick rave
baggy.
You
pants.
basically just described
and-
Cure in
and
a
they
nutshell.
They stink like patchouli. Like that's like who wears those?
You're giving off patchouli vibes.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
what that means.
It's patchouli vibes.
Okay. All right.
I, for one, think that, you know, as a man who cares about his hygiene, he should probably want to be wearing different pants every day. And this is at least 4 episodes in a row that he's worn them. I think 6 out of the last 7. If
But
I'm,
he
if I'm
didn't
counting
wear them
correctly.
on Tuesday and Thursday last week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh, okay. Oh, all
Okay.
right.
And then he
maybe
wore
they're
them yesterday.
running
Conrad's keeping a
Wow,
log.
Conrad has a
I
spreadsheet.
just started making a log now.
We got a pants log.
Oh, here we
Yeah,
go.
those pants
Okay.
are sick.
He
No,
looks
they're
cool.
not.
He doesn't wear
Those
them every
pants
day.
are only sick for that dude. Wow, Mark Wahlberg is stubby.
Yeah, but look at those pants. They're sick.
Stubby.
Those pants are way nicer than your pants, by the way.
Yeah.
They're the same.
All
It's the
these
same
pants-
idea.
Landon's
That
the
is
guy
such
on
a
the
great
left.
shot.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, we got to give him some Zumbas. Get him some Buffalo Bill Zumbas.
That guy's wings. Those pants
Yeah,
are sick
with
too.
those lats.
Those pecs are sick. Jesus. All right, so I guess the pants are passing.
The pants are passing.
Whatever.
I'm a little disappointed, but
3 out of 5 days,
Well,
I'll get
they-
the other ones.
Yeah, I mean he's giving patchouli.
But like I do
vibes.
wear them over. I wash them over the weekend.
I like the pants overall.
He just admitted not to watch
Only
them.
on the weekend?
Yeah.
no, but like I wash them when I need to.
So
It's
you
not like
wore
they're-
Monday, Wednesday, Friday without washing them at all, and then you
bro,
wash them
don't
on the
act like
weekend.
as if you don't fucking do the same thing.
With the robe?
You know,
I
yeah,
don't.
come on.
I mean, the robe is in the house. Yeah.
To be fair, Conrad
Right.
does have like
The perma robe.
87 laundry loads in the
He has
in the
a lot.
laundry room
In
at
the
any
closet.
given time.
And that's only a
Dude,
quarter.
that is
I haven't washed clothes for 8 years.
because
Wow, you have a
Michelle.
girlfriend.
Melissa was shocked at
I need a
first.
girlfriend.
Connie, I bet you have a main event buy-in in that closet that I can get for you.
More than that.
I
More
got-
than that,
Oh
for
my
sure. He has that
God.
just in Yeezys.
Bro can get
Yeah.
in the fucking 100K.
I got,
Repo,
like, 4 of
Repo
them.
Bro's about to come in there.
Yeah.
I got like 4
He's gonna
or
come
5
home one
of
day
them
and just be like stone locked out, and Guapo and I are gonna be in there
Do
like.
you guys have the same shoe
Consolidating.
size?
No, but Guapo has an
RIP.
eBay business, so it's okay.
Oh.
I'm just gonna take 80%.
All
Repo
right,
bro.
everyone's dead.
Fine.
Don't
Tab
throw
will
them out
be
the good
paid.
time. Yeah.
Don't threaten me with a good time. All right. We got a lot on the docket today. A lot of poker stuff, actually. Very, very strange day for that. Fedor made an announcement today about his first step in the GG security. There's also a thread that I want to discuss from Bencb, as well as one that I put out that was inspired by the game I was playing last night. But before we get to all of that, let's deal with who's in the muck today. Who is in the muck today?
Nobody.
Okay, so we are back in the muck. Maybe I'm in the muck. I don't know what's going on, but I got a hand from a friend of mine. Good old Zeus
The Zeus submission.
Zeus submission.
Okay.
Playing 2-5 down at Caesars. It's a $1,000 cap, so 200 big blind game. And let's take a look at the hand. Yep. It's a very fun hand. Here we go. Okay. So folds to what we call a fun player, very, very loose action player in the cutoff who's playing a lot of hands. He makes it 20. Zeus comes in for the 3-bet to 100 with 2 black nines. Cutoff calls. Get a flop of 7 of hearts, 7 of clubs, 6 of clubs. Zeus elects to check. Cutoff bets half pot, 100. Zeus calls.
Boo.
Turn 3.
Lucky.
Zeus
You lays?
checks again. Now we go half pot again from the cutoff for 200. Zeus elects to call again.
I'm getting
going on
scared.
here?
I don't
River is a 10 of diamonds. Zeus checks again. Fun player, all in for about 3/4 pot.
call.
Zeus, call.
Sure.
Zeus wins the hand when the fun player rolls over the 5-6 of diamonds.
Ooh, okay.
Rolled over the 5-6 of diamonds. So Zeus said he rolled it over like it was the nuts. Basically, he wasn't sure if the player was bluffing.
What do you think he was calling?
Ace king.
I don't know, but he said the way he turned his hand over, it made it seem like he thought 5-6 was the best
You
hand.
victory spread the
He
5.
was
Maybe-
for sure betting flop
so-
and turn for value.
So when Zeus sent me this hand, I said my immediate response was like, like I think like with like a board like that, you're gonna have 9s, 10s, jacks, hands that want protection.
Yep.
So I think like betting the flop or maybe check raising is fine, but like I like betting the flop and then probably continuing from there. But he elected to check. He basically was saying that like in these spots he knows this player is very loose and is most likely just going to bluff a lot when checked to. Like he's a player that once shown weakness attacks, right? So so he thought, I'm going to max exploit this guy. This is what his weaknesses are. So I'm going to do that. Now I don't know if there's better hands to choose to do that or
All
not.
right, so here's my perspective. So we have 2 black 9s on 7, 7, 6, 2 clubs.
Correct.
I think this is a fun hand to dissect because you really do have all options available. And what I mean by that is that you're going to play a mix of bets and checks on the flop.
Right.
And some of the hands that are happy to check will be over pairs with a club because those hands can happily be a part of your check raise range. They also do a pretty good job of bluff catching. So like aces with a club would be a pretty good 3-street bluff catcher. 9s with the club, pretty shitty 3-street bluff catcher. And I think that's the biggest area where I disagree with Andy in this spot is that, and I agree with you, Brian, 9s just require a massive amount of protection. Like if this guy's going to triple off with king queen, that's not exactly
too much equity.
Yeah, it's not really. Well, it's not even that he has too much equity. He just has like too much opportunity to just like
You're just spiking
blow
over.
us off of it. Yeah. It's just like there aren't a lot of the 3 deuce runouts or the 3-10 runouts that he happened to get here that are really beneficial for us. And so for that reason, like categorically, from our worst overpair to our best, I would be check raising at a greater frequency to a lower frequency. Like I would just be much more willing to trap with our queens, kings, and aces than I would with our 9s, 10s, and jacks.
So that's kind of what my thought was.
I do like the notion of checking to check raise when we have a club, I think, and then checking to check call or just betting ourselves when we don't have a club. I think either one of those are fine. Not having a club when we take the check call line with 9s is a little bit better as well, just in the sense that it's going to give him have more clubs. But it's problematic, obviously, because we're going to struggle to realize on a club turn. Yeah. So I think that this is like a really interesting spot and one that, for what it's worth, I think to pull out the kind of like global strategy that Andy has in mind here, I think he's very right.
So he did say, he said the 9-9 hand was it felt awkward. He said it kind of illustrated some points for him. He said checking more in general, especially on out of position flops, he said, I've liked what I've been doing, what that's been doing for me overall, just being able to check out of position, I think. And he also said that he's not sure of the check raise spots. So so maybe that's why he didn't check raise his hand, because he wasn't quite sure of the hands he should be check raising.
He can build a check raising range basically off of the entire 3-bet range that possesses a club. So he could check raise ace king with a club, ace queen with a club, ace jack, king queen, queen. As long as he has a club or two clubs.
Is that because when the club comes on the turn, you're able to continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also just allows you to realize equity, right? Like when the club comes on the turn, we're not betting large because it's not a polar spot.
Right. And you obviously have some like your equity doesn't, like when you have no club and the club comes, your equity goes way down. When a club comes and you have one, then it goes up. Yeah.
And you also just like lose the barrelability, which is shitty. But more importantly, I want to get back to this overarching point that he kind of fell into. First of all, I think he mentioned something that's incredibly important here that everybody can take something away from and really lean into. He said how uncomfortable this spot was to check call 3 times, right? That's some of your...
He didn't say that.
No.
Well, that's what you just read.
Yeah,
you literally just read
you
that.
Just said that he was uncomfortable.
He said it felt awkward. Yeah. Right.
So it's like...
He didn't say incredibly uncomfortable. He was very comfortable calling.
I interpret awkward as uncomfortable.
No, I think he just meant awkward as in like... awkward and like
he thinks there might be
this is a weird spot, like awkward.
Sounds
like
pretty uncomfortable to me.
I have to agree.
I don't know
not
what
incredibly.
else.
All right, my screen share will be on thesaurus.com.
I mean,
okay. Well,
I would interpret that as very uncomfortable because you have a pretty marginal hand that you're now putting in 200 big blinds with. That would strike me as uncomfortable.
This is a +1. We're on the same page here.
Anyway, point is that that's some of your most profitable spots in poker. Or some of the biggest, some of the spots that have the largest error propensity to them are going to be the ones where you feel that awkwardness or the uncomfortable nature. And for Andy to lean into it and say like, yeah, this doesn't feel great because my hand is marginal and it's not going to hold up over 2 or 3 streets very well, but I have a strong enough finger on the pulse of how this guy plays that I don't care if he's just too wide on all 3 barrels. Then run out, be damned, I'm just going to pay. And that really is leaning into that narrative of like just pay whenever you have a hand that shows down versus somebody who has way too many hands. The second thing that I think is worth taking away is he doesn't worry about protecting. And you know, when we get into the mechanics of this, I think we'll see that nines wants protection.
He did say, he goes, I'm kind of just very unconcerned about protection in a lot of these spots. This can be good and bad. He said he thinks he's still working on this, but general, I don't worry about.
Still in the lab.
Yeah, but I don't worry about it as much as others perceive.
Right.
Or as I perceive others do.
I mean, it just seems like he's trying to find the EV in checking nodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it goes way up because of the overbluff, right? And I think that's really good.
Right, and I think this hand was very player dependent.
Sure. So mechanically speaking, we're going to see that there's going to be a preference in theory to protection here. Mm-hmm. But practically speaking, I think that it's reasonable to understand that you're against an opponent who's just going to over-aggress his entire range. And for that, you earn additional money through the calling line than you would if you blew him off, quote unquote, his low equity hands, right? So if you do put in a flop check raise, maybe he peels with a bad hand like ace 5, maybe he folds it, I don't know. But then when you shove turn, he for sure folds it, right?
So I have a question about exactly that. So on this board, with his exact holding, isn't this a board that's not particularly great to use as a check raise because our opponent possesses more 7s?
Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter in these relatively low SPR spots. What are we looking at? Like 4 on the flop?
4.5.
Yeah. So it's just like you're going to get stacked versus 7 anyway. Like if you have aces, kings, queens, jacks, even as low as 9s, 8s, whatever, your mission isn't to not get stacked by a 7, right? Like,
is it safe to assume though, like before we pull it up on Wiz, that it's probably not going to check raise very often on this board?
No, I disagree.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, it's going to bet a lot. Like,
I'm talking about the actual check raise line.
Right. But what I'm saying is that, like, whether we're betting or check raising, we're still aggressing at a pretty high frequency.
Okay.
So I would assume that, like, our betting frequency is going to be, like, 60, 65%, and our check frequency will be like 35, 40. And then of that checking frequency, we're probably going to check raise like 16 to 17% of the time, maybe.
Yeah, so pretty low.
No, that's high.
That's pretty high for a check
Really?
raise.
That's
Yeah.
very high.
You think your flop check raise is higher than 15%?
Most people's flop check raise is like most people's flop check raise is like
Single
7
digits for sure.
Like
7 is
it's
high.
Yeah.
it's
like
supposed to
3.
be like 20 something, right? Like it's supposed to be
15% on average is
Yeah.
good.
20 is going to be like wide, like
Yeah.
20 is like a
button, big
frequency for
blind.
like paired board.
Yeah.
Right? Button big blind paired board you want to check.
Yeah, like 4-4-7.
But like some
something
boards
that.
you just don't have that many.
Right.
So when I see a whiz output that's check raising 15%, that's considered pretty
That's
high.
pretty high.
Okay.
And you're probably playing nobody that check raises 15%.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Some people are at 0.
so something to think about
Close.
in these spots, which is a little bit tougher because I'm not gonna pretend to know what the villain bro is doing,
Oh, wow.
Is-
VB.
is that
I'm wrong.
he's
It was the
he's
inverse.
gonna have 10s, 9s, jacks, queens in his calling range to the 3-bet pre. But if this guy 4-bets jacks plus, then it gets a little bit different. I didn't node lock or touch any of the pre-flop
Yeah.
stuff except for Andy's
So-
like
Okay, so like, from Andy's perspective, he said this guy was literally playing every hand.
sure.
Right. So he's playing every hand, like raising a ton, calling 3-bets. So like he's
Like a
super
Caesars.
wide going into this flop.
Right. So now it's an issue of like, I'm not necessarily going to try to look at what I think he's going to have because if someone's playing any 2 cards, I can paint the deck however I want to paint it to
all
make
it's
sense.
going to do is
to-
increase our aggression frequency.
Right.
Then, like, it'll be similar to the numbers I spotted.
So theoretically, in this spot, we are still worried when we have a hand like 9s because of the 10s, jacks, and queens present 4 in position. And the size you want to use is like B67 or check. Point being, we're trying to target the Broadways for in position that have to fold, such as like some offsuit Broadway that have a club, as well as some backdoor draws that don't really feel too nice getting B67 into. And 9s with a club is mostly going to go into the check node, as it can bluff catch better, but the board state does change a lot to make the hand worth less. So now when we look at the overpairs that are a little bit better, we'll see that kings and queens are mostly the value driver, where you do get called by jacks and under. But with 9s, that's more so of an issue. Where if they have a 7, they have a 7, God bless, it's kind of over for you. But if you have 9s, you don't want to run into that higher portion of range that is 10s plus and 2 Broadway cards, sometimes with the club draw, sometimes with the backdoor heart draw, and then the board state might change on an overcard, which makes your life a little bit more miserable.
to be clear, this is 2E, I'm pretty sure. So I think this is a
No, it's
geo
not.
size.
I mean, you mean 3E? 3E. It's
No.
SPR is 4.5.
Pot 250, stack 950.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Pot 205.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
You're right.
You're gonna
Yeah.
see by the all in what SPR is, right?
Yeah.
So
Can you
Yeah.
explain that real quick, Landon? The
Explain
SPR
what?
and the all-in percentage?
well, yeah. I mean, if you just see what the all in is, like 463%, that's what the SPR
That's
is.
4x.
4.6. Yeah.
4.6.
So yeah, when it looks like when we're looking at how we want to function with our betting strategy as a whole, we want to be B67ing with hands that have a lot of equity and generate some fold equity sometimes with our bluffs, like Queen Jack, Queen 10 are good ones. Jack 10 of clubs is a good one, as well as like front door flush draws. And then we're going to use some backdoor flush draws sometimes, like King Jack of Hearts a little bit, Ace Jack of Hearts a little bit, and then you're going to check to potentially play a check raise or check call, depending on like the frequency. So when we check here and have a big bet on the flop, it seems like the in-position response, if our strategy is big bet or check, is mostly going to be small bet or check back. Because we're trying to say that if we do bet, we have a strong hand. When we check, our hand are comprised of weaker ones.
With the overpairs, which ones are more prevalent to check, with or without a club?
So it looks like here, when it comes to specific combos, it's hard to really gauge. Like 10s with a club heart likes checking because it blocks all the backdoor stuff.
Well, it's specific.
Jacks.
It's specific. It's the hearts aren't betting.
Sure. Yeah, you don't want to have a heart. You want your opponent to have a heart more often than not.
So the heart combos are the ones that are doing most of the checking.
If you're not using them for value, where like queens and kings,
It's the inverse.
it's kind of the kings are kind of all over the place. Hands kind of just too good. But queens with a heart is mostly going to be betting.
Queens now defers to the club to check.
Yeah.
Same thing with kings, I believe.
Yeah, kings is all over the board.
Well, and
Yeah.
his specific hand wants to do what?
9s is mostly going to check.
With a club?
Yeah, nines with a club, you can kind of do whatever you want. Sometimes you can bet, get protection value. Checking is good too, as when you check call B25, you can see how the board is going to change.
Oh, that's
for
interesting.
Or against you.
Nines is different than tens. Nines defaults to being closer to a pure check with a club, where tens is a pure check with a heart.
What if you have the club and the heart?
It must be
For
because
nines, you check.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It must be because once you start getting into tens, they have those Broadway combos with the backdoor that you want to free up.
Right. So yeah, like Jack 10.
Yeah, those
Queen
will
10.
stab a lot.
Yeah. So when we check, in position strategy is going to be a lot of small bets and checks, and we can see here they're stabbing a lot when they have like the Broadway cards like Jack 10, Queen Jack, King 10, hands along those lines, and everything's kind of mixing except for 6-5.
6-5
really.
pure checks, and he bet.
Yeah, 6-5 is mostly going to check, as when you do bet, you put yourself in a tough spot if your opponent is playing a check raising strategy. As now you have this like no man's land hand where you have to peel, but the turns are really scary most of the time. And the only good card for you is a 6 or potentially a 4.
You also never get better to fold. And there isn't a whole lot worse that can call
Like
outside of like
overcards.
overcards, but they're gonna have decent
high
equity.
equity. Yeah.
Right. So like 5-4 is a good one as you have a straight, and if you have no showdown value, but 6-5, you kind of want to check and get the showdown and see how the board develops.
It's also our only 6.
Yeah, it's like, why would you want to blow up the pot like with that hand?
Right. It's like the weird, I want to get protection for my hand, but at the same time, it's not doing what you want it to do, as the hand you're trying to protect from will just peel.
Right. But see, like this is another reason why Andy went into I'm going to check here, because he knows this guy's going to barrel too often with probably hands that he shouldn't.
Right. So
yeah, I wonder how often Andy finds the ace king, ace queen call, because this is a line that I used to take a lot before I was a little bit more studied. I'd get the 7-7-6 board and I would just check call 3 with ace king high.
it's kind of probably nice.
It is. It serves really well, but I would like always just check call with ace king high. Like I would never bet it.
It's kind of funny because like when the guy rolled over his hand and he said he thought, like, I wasn't sure, like he seemed like he just thought it was the nuts. Maybe he just put Andy on specifically ace king. Once Andy 3-bet and then checked and then checked and then checked. Like this guy just says ace king. I'm just gonna, maybe he'll call. I'll blast off with my pair of 5s or a pair of 6s.
On river,
Like
it's
merging.
river it's misguided because ace king should fold when the 10 falls.
Right.
It's too much 8-9
Yeah,
in range.
Ironically, if Andy was calling like range, he probably would have called ace king.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like this guy's playing too many hands.
Of the hands that you would find the check call, check fold with, though, like ace king, ace queen should be it.
Sure. And I guess suits don't really matter that much if the guy's playing too many hands, because if he's not folding king 10 off, blocking suited 10s with ace king isn't going to matter.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it looks like we're playing our check raising range, it's actually a lot higher than I thought, which is like 25%.
Oh wow, yeah.
As like
Well, that makes sense because we're not c-betting nearly as much anymore, so we have this concentration to overpairs.
Yep, we have overpairs. We have high cards that can still check raise. We have some ace queen off, flush draw bluffs. We have flush draw bluffs with ace 8 suited,
queen
ace
with a
5,
club.
ace 4, king queen with king queen no backdoor actually. I guess it's just you want to have some bluffs
I was
that
talking
aren't
about the
equity
offsuit
dense.
variety.
Yeah, offsuit you need to have a club.
Yeah.
Yeah, just king of clubs too good. Not going to matter in this case. He's playing too many hands, but nines you can kind of sort of mix protection and value. If you want to raise, you can. But if this is the case, for the most part, if the turn is low, you're probably not going to double barrel it as check raise bet.
Right, check raise check.
Because it's such a low frequency that you're raising in the first place. You probably aren't going to take this one to the house, as you're just going to see 10s plus a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So Andy goes for call. I think the important part is if you check kings, this is the one you want to fast play as you unblock the ace X for the in-position player. Where if we do go for a raise and he folds out some ace highs, that's pretty good for us, even though we have kings.
Right.
Pot's big enough as it is. We get ace jack with a backdoor to be indifferent, which is nice. So check raising is good. Turn was
An offsuit
3.
offsuit 3 of spades.
3 spades, yeah.
So we're not going to have any leads, I imagine. That kind of wouldn't make too much sense to me. Okay, cool. No leads. What size did the cutoff go? We went like half again?
Yeah.
So now, at least on the turn, we can see that the cutoff can stack off roughly with 10s. As we've checked twice, we have a lot of high cards and probably just bet, get it in. This looks like 2E, I think.
Yeah.
81.
Yeah, it is.
I think he went 3E in this whole thing, close to it in this whole thing.
Oh, he went half 75.
Yeah.
He went half on
Pretty-
flop?
Yeah.
If it was
Okay,
4
so
to,
if he was
4 to
slightly
1,
more,
yeah, 4 to 1 is 50.
It's almost like 60%, 60%, 60%.
3 was like
60%.
I think it was 62.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it was 4 to 1, it's 54.
Yeah, it was 4.5 to 1. A little bit over, like 4.6.
Oh, cool. So it looks like even though like he goes bigger on flop, our raise frequency still stays the same. The size that we raise is a little
Just
bit smaller.
Yeah.
As they've chose big size, so we don't need to raise big to get him to fold some nonsense garbage.
Right. In order to get the money in.
Right. So now at this point, if he goes bigger, nines actually raises more. As you do want to get protection value and stack off with the club, as I imagine if we did raise and he piled, nines is kind of mad, but like, all right. Yeah, like nines with a club, you're just like, okay, I have what I have and I'm calling you. Like you call nines with a club, you fold tens because you block some bluffs with the 10 of clubs. So after bet call, turn 3 of spades. Once again, probably no leads. That wouldn't make sense. We check, and then the cutoff goes for 50%. So now the cutoff bets a lot of the time, and they bet the hands that need protection value, like their overpairs. They also bluff with, oh, this is interesting actually. It looks like they bluff with their club flush draws and just call them off as they're good enough to bet call with the overcards to the board.
Well, not all of them. You're looking specifically at nut flush draws. I bet King Jack doesn't.
Well, King 10 is betting. King Jack doesn't really exist. It looks like it just checks back.
Yeah.
But then like King 10, you're mostly betting as you can get some like potentially some ace high back. Let's see if I look back here, like ace high backdoors to fold.
Right.
Like ace jack of hearts just has to peel versus 50.
Ace king, ace queen.
Ace queen.
Yeah.
Really kind of mad about it, but like, all right, if we don't bet it ourselves. So they do like B50. B50 does well. Yeah, ace 5, you can just bet call off with the gutter and potentially like wreck them when they have some flush draws that check jam on you. So I would have never found these bluffs actually, because it's just a matter of, is this hand good enough to stack off? And the answer is yes, based off of going half on flop. So the cutoff bets again for B50. And now Andy.
I feel like he's, wow, I thought he would jam here.
Wow. I guess it's just because we're too scared to run into it.
Right.
And like nines, it's like.
Yeah, we have no 5-4 or very little anyway.
Yeah, we have like almost no 5-4. Our value hands are pretty static as like jacks is like. Jacks is like you can kind of get in because you're still going to run into queens sometimes, which is fine. But then with nines, you're just risking too much getting called by tens and things along those lines for 200 big blinds deep. Ace king is still mixing calls depending on suits. You don't want the ace of clubs because they're bluffing with the flush draws.
Right.
So the Matt Berkey 2012 line was still reasonable.
Still approved.
River is 10 of spades.
10 of diamonds.
10 of diamonds. Boom, boom, boom. It goes to my brain when I load it. It's like, so, oh wow, lead all in is cool. That's pretty sick. So Andy mostly gonna play a check for normal life purposes. I'm just gonna remove the bets. Confirm. We're just gonna check range on river, and I guess it was just forming out a range for king queen and then aces because they're gonna check back a good amount. But as we can see here, a lot of check back like with queens. So we're leading because it's like, oh, fuck, like they can't bet queens anymore. But nobody in live poker or poker as a whole is probably going to find a check back with queens here.
Right. Even like rivered king 10 checking back.
Right. You just have too much showdown value. And if you bet, you're only getting called by better.
Interesting that ace 10 chooses the bet when jacks and queens check.
It blocks aces.
That's fair.
It's kind of about it, I imagine.
Yeah.
And then like as you see here, like 6-5 doesn't really exist in the range as it should check flop.
Right.
But their range on the end is effectively their bluffs. There's 7x, and then
queen jack's the majority of the bluffs.
Right. Just you block queens, you block jacks for the check call line, and then you have to give up if you have clubs because you want your opponent to have clubs in their hand. At least the middling ones. So ace 10 is like the bottom value bet, and even this feels relatively thin. Depending
so facing
on the
jam,
suits.
nines is probably going to fold.
Facing jam in this spot, very ugly, but indifferent.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of nice to have nines here versus jacks, depending on the suit, as like their bluff is coming from queen jack.
Yeah.
So you don't actually want jacks in your hand.
Right.
And then like the Matt Berkey ace king is kind of in there a little bit too.
And like in what's actually happening, the guy's range is probably much wider than what this is showing. So then nines probably becomes even more of a call.
What happens, or the big takeaway here, the larger point, if you will, that we can take from something like this is that whenever you follow Andy's line throughout and you land on the river with hands that are now indifferent that were pure on the previous streets, they're probably going to shift closer to pure, right? Because this guy just gets here with too many hands. He's over-aggressing with hands that have no business betting. And it's like, well, this hand was pure throughout 2 streets. He didn't suddenly become too narrow.
Right.
So if that's true, then even though in theory it would mix, when we give too many hands to our opposition, we just pay.
Right.
Yeah. This hand would go from 0 to green.
Just pay.
Just pay. Just pay. Yeah.
I think you wanted a graphic there.
No, he already had it up. I was mimicking it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Right.
Yeah.
So Andy gets the green check
You
mark.
can get a green check mark.
All
on this one.
right. Go Andy.
It's actually a very courageous line, I think, by Andy. Because your hand is so susceptible to just getting outdrawn,
Yeah.
and then you having to pay.
Right. But like that's what he said. He's like, I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about him making huge mistakes by overplaying his hands, and that's what happened.
Well, that's another thing to kind of speak on, though. It's like, okay, he's right because this guy tripled off 6-5, right? So that already acknowledges that Andy was correct in his assumptions. But the problem is he becomes a little bit wrong if instead this guy just shows up with like Queen Jack, right? Because that's just kind of like okay,
Right.
as long as it's not Queen Jack of clubs specifically. Now this guy is like actually tripling off with some pretty reasonable candidates, and that makes it a little bit tough whenever you fall into this middle to lower portion of your bluff catching range, where it's like you're nowhere near the top. You don't have a hand that certainly can't get outdrawn or just has to always pay type of thing. Of course, on this run out, it will. But like, you know, say the run out is just paint. You're not really in a super comfortable situation. So it is something to be mindful of. And I'm going to speak a bit to it on the Take a Beat segment today. But overall, I think that this hand really does illuminate a larger point of putting yourself into strategically uncomfortable spots that you force a level of comfort into, right? You acknowledge the moment of, well, it might be uncomfortable to take this line, but that line is making way more money than any alternative, more comfortable line that I could possibly take.
Right.
Yep. This happens a lot when you're facing polar actions, where when you reaggress through a jam, it folds out the bluffs and you get called by better.
Right. And to take that one step further, you're facing polar actions from like a pretty mergy range, right? Now when you jam, all of that middle stuff that had no business betting this size to begin with just disappears. And that's a problem. For those of you at home, if you'd like to submit your own In the Muck, be sure to head over to our Discord channel. You can find that at OnlyFriendsPod. Nope, that's not true. You can find that at Solve for YTV. I swear to God, we're going to get this graphic changed. Or you can hit hashtag Discord in the chat. That'll give you the link as well. We have a special forum there where you can submit your own hand histories that we'll eventually read on air. Also, big announcement. We have partnered to start our own dealer school. And this is a pretty exciting endeavor. We have an exciting announcement. Over the years, I've talked to a lot of players who have thought about dealing either as a side gig to help rebuild their own bankroll or gaining new perspective on the game, kind of seeing things from the lens of being in the box, or, you know, just shifting and getting out of the playing career and into a different career within the poker space. As players, we also know how important it is to have knowledge of the game and have an efficient dealer when you're playing. So we've actually partnered with Visionary Design and Development. This is led by Jill, our dealer from Poker Out Loud. If you've ever watched any of the episodes, you know that she's just the absolute best in the business that we've come across. And we've decided to create an immersive poker dealer academy. This is going to run all through March. It's fully comprehensive training that transforms your basic poker knowledge into a skill set that you'll have that will allow you to deal like a pro in no time. This intensive 3-day program is perfect for those who already know hand rankings and the difference between cash and tournament rules. Our focus is going to be on 2 games, No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha. You'll learn everything necessary to be a qualified candidate for this year's WSOP tryouts, which will be in early April. We'll even help you secure a job successfully after completing the program. First session kicks off March 1st. It's here in the Solve for Y studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're offering a few different sessions, both morning and evening, to try to help comply everybody's schedules. or accommodate everybody's schedules, you can just head to academy.solveforwhy.io, click on the, what do we have it?
It's right in the header. You'll see Dealer Academy. That'll bring you to the page with all of the info that you want. And then at the bottom, there's a link to click that'll take you to the sign up page, and you can get yourself signed up. You can pick, so once you get to the sign up page, you'll click on date and time. And so you can choose which date you want. Remember, this is a 3-day academy. So when you pick the date, you're just picking the starting date.
Right.
But each of these academies are 3 days.
Yeah, you can also hit #dealer in the chat to get that link. Also, big shout out to GTO Wizard for providing the materials for In the Muck. Hit #Wizard if you guys are looking to sign up for your own account there and use the AI the way young Tice does every day in the muck.
Right.
All right, let's get to the shits. We got some stuff to talk. Let's get to the shit, as if we did.
We already we opened with the shits.
We didn't open with the shit.
Shout out
Guapa, I will say, I admire your willingness to just be honest with a group that has no intention of keeping it a secret.
None whatsoever.
I was trying to spare someone from going down to the bathroom.
Well, nobody was going to go down because
we have a show to do, bro.
We had a show. Yeah, you could have just came up, just sat back down, not said a word.
Right.
I think you wanted it, honestly.
Yeah,
That's why I gave it to
he
you.
knows good
deep
comedy.
down, yeah,
He wanted it. He really wanted it.
He also knows that after the show, when one of us migrated our way into the bathroom,
Exactly.
it would have been a big deal.
Exactly.
It would have maybe been Poopgate 2.0. I don't know.
Dun.
All right, so we have a few big stories to talk about within the poker community today. First one being that Fedor made his first announcement as security ambassador for GG. He put a tweet out today that says, "I believe we all cherish poker in its purest form, mind versus mind. That's why my first security priority is the strict limitation and usage of mind data and MDA with HUDs. It's more than unfair, it's predatory. GG Poker will be stepping up enforcement against harmful third-party software. There's a lot of other big challenges ahead, but I think this is an important step in the right direction to ensure fair play online." What are your guys' initial thoughts regarding this tweet? I know we've talked a lot about MDA. We had a panel on here with Chewy and Nick Howard, who runs Poker Detox and operates almost solely in the MDA space. If you guys are interested on their thoughts, you can go back and check out that episode. But what's the general consensus here before I give my thoughts?
I think the big question is how. I mean,
well, the how is they're going to eliminate or at least reduce the ability to use HUDs, and it sounds like
they already had reduced the ability to use HUDs. You can't use HUDs on GJ. They have their own.
You can't
HUD.
use PT4?
No, they have their own HUD.
well, no, you can. You can import hands into Poker Tracker.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can go to their there's a website that you actually go to where you can import your hands.
Is this
Right.
going to be more similar to how WSOP operates?
That's
Because
the
I
way it
know-
sounds.
Right. So I know that you can't import hands. You
Yeah.
can't use any
You'd have
HUDs.
to use like a scraper.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's a step in the right direction for sure. It definitely levels the playing field to a little bit, because if you're on there and you're not using a HUD and somebody else is, it's just a massive advantage.
I feel like most people use hand to note on GG, and I think there's like a big database of like the high stakes people that is like pretty commonly used on there. So that's probably what they're referring to.
Well, hand to note, I believe, is a similar thing as PT4,
Yeah.
just with far more layers
Yeah,
for you to do
can
analysis.
Look at the heuristics.
Right. So it still comes down to the hand import feature, and it sounds like that's one of the big things that they're going to be restricting, which, like Brian mentioned, would be similar to what WSOP does. You can't get access to all of your hands, I don't think. I think you can get access to like a certain time frame of your hands.
Yeah, but not in like a text file. Or
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like impossible to import them into.
Right. And it also sounds like they're going to be very vigilant against screen scrapers, third-party software, and things like that. And on the surface, this all sounds really good. Like it's a step in the right direction.
Mhm.
But my big takeaway from that panel that I did with Chewy and Nick is that the issue with MDA is not necessarily how predatory it is, because that was my stance. I kind of echoed Fedor's sentiment here, is that it's just so predatory, not just on pool tendencies, but like when you weaponize it against a single individual, it becomes really bad.
Yeah.
And the higher up you go, the smaller the pool becomes and the more individualistic it becomes, right? There was a point where I think Upswing put out a course, How to Beat the Baron or something along those lines. And it was just, a few 100,000 hands scraped from Baron. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot to learn there, of course, but you're also just like kind of weaponizing this data against a single individual. And we all pretty much landed on like that's the point where you're ethically crossing the line is when it's weaponized against individuals. But
you're like just dissecting one person's entire game and finding every single one of his leaks.
Right, you basically have a perfect counter.
Right, yeah.
But the larger takeaway is that, you know, largely, or for the most part, this is just unenforceable and impossible to police. And Chewie's stance kind of surprised me, but he was basically like, well, we should just open the floodgates instead of trying to put the genie back in the bottle, because that's actually more fair to everybody than trying to create some sort of ethical subset of rules that most people who want to break it are just going.
And this
to.
is like what Gelfon's site was trying to do when they were launching, right? Wasn't it like everybody had a HUD, like it was just already built in?
Well, GG has that too.
Okay, they have that too.
Yeah, but that's not the bigger issue here, because like what Hand to Node is capable of doing is like really drilling down into specific nodes in the game tree and finding population tendencies
you
where
can
you're
look at like specific lines.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Bet from small blind.
Yeah, or like, donk overbet frequency. You can really get granular with it. My problem with this messaging, and I didn't really see anything in the thread about this, but I'm kind of surprised, is a lot of that data collection that is currently taking place. Of course, it's being utilized to increase win rate as well, but a lot of it is being utilized to suss out cheating. And I always took the stance with WSOP of like, I'm glad they don't give hand histories, because all it does is advance the entire pool faster. It just makes the regs better, quicker, and it does allow this sort of MDA type of approach where you're able to curate strategy specific to the pool. But the issue is that we can't now self-police. And I will say that I budged on my stance a little bit, because after seeing the last 18 months of how much, or I should say how critical, the community policing itself has become, it becomes difficult for me to see how disempowering us is a net positive for everybody, right? I mean, it's basically like Fedor getting into a position, and I know this isn't him, he's just an advisor in this instance, but for all intents and purposes, he is going to be the face of this, right? So we're going to be speaking directly to him, not just to GG. It puts him in a position where it's like, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take away your ability to, as a community, kind of like look into this peculiar activity. I don't know if we find Money Taker 6ix9ine without MDA. Right?
Also, what is the incentive for these big companies to like go after anything if there's no squeaky wheel?
Correct. That's a really great point. And the big thing with Money Taker 6ix9ine was that they were able to run it through Hand to Node. They were able to compare it to how the pool plays. They were able to compare it to GTO lines and all this other stuff. Most importantly, they were able to get a collection of 4,000 or 5,000 hands, whatever it was, and run this through something, whether it's GTO Wizard, Hand to Node, something that's going to spit out and say like, this is not human, right? I'm not sure how we go about that any longer. How do we find the RTAers? How do we find the botters if we've lost our ability to collect any level of data? And this is the real touch and go thing, because maybe ultimately we don't see it just yet, but this is Fedor addressing our larger issues of botting, RTAing, and super using or whatever. But on the surface, it looks like he's ignoring the biggest problems and slapping a Band-Aid on something that may not be an issue at all.
Yeah.
No thoughts?
It's hard to have a response to that one.
Well,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand that like WSOP has never allowed HUDs, and I think that is probably fine. But I do think that maybe not. I'm not sure.
Wait a minute. He made the sound. He did the. You heard it.
Yeah,
they did the Landon.
But I'm disagreeing with myself, not someone else.
Yeah.
So it's only okay. Okay.
Oh, you do it to interject, and I would love for you to interject here. I'm tired of listening to myself talk. But I'm just. I guess I'm kind of struggling to see how this is the big step forward. That
I don't know if it's the biggest step forward, but it's something.
Is it though?
I think it might be something.
They can always go back if it's.
it's bad.
I mean, there's
How bad
trying
can it
shit.
be?
I mean, WSOP is pretty soft.
Right, but it's a very, very small pool. Right, small
Yeah.
liquidity pool. There's a lot less incentive to cheat it, and it's regulated, so they're also kind of like under the guise of Nevada gaming.
Well, yeah, getting banned on WSOP means you get banned from live too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they should add like if you get banned on GG, you should probably get banned from live
Right.
too.
Is that true though? If you get banned from WSOP online, you get banned from live too.
It's a Venn diagram.
Because I know for sure that if you get banned from WSOP New Jersey,
Yep.
you do not get banned from live here.
That's a sweeping statement. That's not true.
do you mean?
It depends on the offense.
Okay.
You can be banned online and not banned live, but
Square, rectangle, square.
right, but like you can't be banned live. I'm pretty sure you can't be banned live and not banned online. And then also a lot of the people, like the Venn diagram of the people banned online and the people that are also banned live is pretty robust.
It just seems very odd if GG is partnered like on the felt of WSOP events, and if you are banned from GG, you could still play the WSOP event. partnered with GG.
Yes, I do agree. But they're still separate entities. They're
Mhm.
partners.
Yeah.
They're not dual
get it.
ownership.
I get it. It's just still kind of like.
I agree. You would think they would share their blacklist with one another.
You know,
If
this-
anybody,
like this guy can't play here. Like we don't want him at the event.
Yeah, I have a friend that was banned from basically multi-accounting, kind of, because
Right.
he was in New Jersey and he had somebody else log into his account in like North Jersey or something like that.
yeah,
Or he was at Atlantic City, sorry. And he had somebody log in North Jersey.
that's not multi-accounting. That's
What would you call it?
Someone else
so-
logging in.
ghosting, I guess.
Ghosting,
like
sure,
letting
whatever.
somebody else play.
Yeah, so whatever. And yeah, he was banned from WSOP New Jersey, but not from online here or live here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
I would think that there was overlap between the security of online Jersey and online Nevada.
Yeah.
But maybe not. But yeah, the lower the infraction, the less likely you are to be banned live. And honestly, it'd be interesting. I wonder if like Panzica would ever speak on it. Maybe he's able to play online in spite of the fact that he's banned at the WSOP live. But I would, as a gambling man, I would bet he's banned on both.
Ollie can still play live events, right?
Yes, but not online as far as we know. I mean, he hasn't been on there in a couple of years, so it seems as though they proactively banned him online.
I mean, he doesn't live here anymore either, also. I think he lives in, like somewhere else.
Yeah, that's fair.
Texas.
But it's been like since the story broke that I think we saw him or Jake online.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they are definitely still allowed to play WSOP events live. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to hear more from Fedor. To me, this story is like, if I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it definitely feels like a big red herring where it's like, hey, look, we're doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that nobody knows how to solve online cheating. So they're just
Right.
trying shit.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's why I kind of don't have any input, because like I don't fucking know how to. The cat's out of the bag already. I just think online's gonna die. I just don't really know how you fix it. It's already like dying, so I just don't really.
I kind of agree. But do you agree that solving the issue of MDA being weaponized almost has no corollary to RTA and botting? Like, it's not going to
Well,
reduce
I think they're
RTA or
both
botting,
contributing
right?
to online dying, but I don't know.
No, I agree with that.
like-
Sorry. I'm trying to say, like, one doesn't solve the other.
Yeah.
Like, MDA has
Is he
nothing to
claiming
do.
that it does though?
I don't think so, but it's almost like the
When
way
you were saying MDA it can be used to find RTA.
it's like anti-cheat for us, right?
Yeah,
Because
maybe
we
it balances out though, because then other people are using it to target specific people.
Right. So it's a matter of like how much win. I guess that's what it really distills down to. Is why I feel like this is kind of an empty statement, is because if we look at how much win rate MDA offers compared to how much win rate like RTAing or botting offers, I would assume or even colluding, which is another big concern of ours in all online platforms. I would assume all of those individually offer significantly higher win rate than MDA does.
Do you think this is just easier to fix?
Yes. I think this
maybe
is
they're
So
starting
is-
with this and
Just
then,
looking for a start point to just say, hey guys, we did this.
yeah.
like
I'm curious to see what happens in the upcoming months, right? Like, what's the next step, right? And what's the next step after that? If we don't hear anything for a couple months, then it's like,
That's kind of the problem that I'm seeing, is that this feels disconnected, that this doesn't lead to a solve in the other two, but it feels like it creates more problems with the other two, right? Like,
Right.
it feels like a problem that is not a problem is being solved. And like, look, I was the one when I started the MDA council or the panel. I was very hard in the camp of like, this is an issue, but it's because of the way it was presented. It was two people who were playing heads up and one person had their database weaponized against them. It's like, yeah, that's fucking bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the majority of the way that MDA is being used.
That's not most of poker.
Right. Especially when you start to go down in the pools, right? Like, sure, maybe that's happening at like 20K NL heads up, right? Like maybe one of the top heads up players has a database on their opponent and they're using it against them.
For sure they do.
Right. But
It
to
kind
be
of works
fair,
both ways.
right. To be fair, like they earned that database. They played against him, right? It'd be, and maybe you
Unless
could,
they bought it.
right. I was gonna say, maybe you could buy one. I'm unsure.
Of
Like,
course
I don't,
you can. You can buy all these things. There's a market for everything. I mean, this stuff is
Yeah,
worth so
you
much
can,
money. Of
you
course
can buy
you can buy it.
You can buy it. Like I remember a friend showing me a Discord where it's like, yeah, you can buy hand histories from whoever you want for like $100.
right. Right. So that might be happening on the margins, but whenever you start to scale down in the pools, like say you get down to like 500 NL, it's going to be pretty difficult to like weaponize a database against a single individual. Right. The pool's just too broad. You're going to get pool tendencies, and I think that there's a debate to be made that that's not that big of a deal, right? Like it's
Pool
available
tendency.
to everybody. Everyone could be doing the exact same thing. You're curating your own unique strategy off of it. Like it's just giving data and utilizing it in a way or interpreting it in a way that is or is not beneficial to you, right?
I think
like,
that's valid in the sense of MDA stuff. I call it the detox strat,
Yeah.
where it developed from MDA. In theory, everybody that was playing online poker could do what they did, but it does take a lot of work and time and energy. And then you can say, how great is it if someone does this work and then sells it to people for a price, being
Right.
the CFP?
yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody could do that work and try to do the same thing, and then pool wise it would all just even out to zero.
I think the point against it is that like recs aren't gonna go and buy databases, so it's kind of just creating a bigger divide.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rex are just getting fleeced.
Yeah, and then the pool dries up way faster. 'Cause
Yeah.
the regs are getting way better. The recs are not gonna find those like where are they gonna buy? I don't even know where to buy a database, like so I don't even know where a rec would begin, or even they don't even know. They probably don't know that it exists.
Probably
You can
true.
even I don't know.
It's like the weird.
I think it's like a fine step.
It's like the weird information access to information thing where, like, when it comes to Rex wanting to get better or not get better, everyone has the ability to get wizard.
Yeah.
We're
But
so immersed in it, like you forget like how little they even like. Some don't even know about wizard. Like so they
Right,
don't, like there's
right, but-
so many things that I don't know. I think
I'm not sure that's representative of like the average rec though. Like especially online,
Even
I
if
would
it
think the
doesn't really
majority.
matter. I mean,
Even if it is, though, right? Even if they do or don't know, it's more so about the ignorance to poker as a whole, is what you're kind of saying. Is if you're playing
you're
recreationally,
pushing
you don't
out
know.
people that are like it's like slowly just going to be only people who know how to buy databases.
Well, I think it's maybe one step below that, but yeah, I agree with you in the sense that the barrier of entry to sustain at all continues to rise.
Yeah, because now you need a freaking wizard account just to be competitive. Soon you're gonna need a database too, and then you're gonna need RTA. Everyone's gonna be botting against each other.
Right, but it's kind of always been that way, right? Like HUDs have existed for 20 years, so this argument isn't like really all that far removed of are HUDs fair? And very, very, very long ago, we declared that HUDs were fair and didn't care that the recs weren't going to use them. And I understand this is
The
a
bar just
compounding
keeps
thing.
raising though.
Yeah, but it comes now at the exchange of potentially letting RTA and collusion and things of that nature run more rampant, which I would argue is costing the Rex more money than MDA ever could. Because like if you think about MDA and like MTTs, for example, it's useful, but it's not that much more useful than just like studying. which Rex aren't going to do that either. So Rex are always going to be at a pretty big disadvantage. It's just a matter of like pick your poison, I think. But yeah, I'll be curious to see how this moves forward. Hopefully we hear more from Fedor and the GG team. And it'll be interesting to see how other sites like Stars and Party kind of respond to this sort of, I don't want to say behavior, but sort of precedent, if you will. All right, a couple other things that I want to discuss. This is more the meaty topic, although that was a little bit meaty. We got a little something from the higher ups. I wanted to kind of get into, since we're talking about recreationals and the barrier of entry type of stuff, I wanted to discuss this Bencb thread that came out yesterday. I quote tweeted it and I said something to the effect of, I don't hesitate to call out bad advice that's targeting beginning struggling players. So likewise, I think it's important to highlight whenever good hard truths are put out there. And I will say that like I don't always agree with Ben's messaging. Sometimes he gets a little bit too grind culture-y for me as well, but I do appreciate the fact that he doesn't sugarcoat shit. He doesn't try to create some like flowery language or try to pretend that like, oh, if you have an interest in poker, you're going to be competitive and win. Like all you have to do is show up a bunch and try. It's like, well, we all know that that's not true. This game's fucking hard.
Just put in 3,000 hours.
Yeah, no big deal. You just got to grind that negative one big blind per 100 win rate.
Start with the small
Eventually you'll
loan.
even out and you'll be down $1 million.
Right. So Ben wrote 14 hard truths, and I'm interested to hear like which of these do you guys feel like are the most powerful tips or the most potent truths, if you will. I'll read through them really quickly, and then just if you want to pick like one or two that you think are most impactful, we can discuss. So number one, you don't win because you're not lucky. You don't win because you're not good.
Real.
That one's good. Yeah. That's why it's number one.
With a bullet. Statistics don't have a memory. Just because you've run bad for the last few weeks doesn't mean you will run better.
Real.
Nobody cares about your bad beat stories. You don't deserve anything in poker. I think those two can go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Your feelings are not an excuse to play poorly. You can still play well while feeling angry.
Base. It's like jungle.
I strongly disagree with that one, actually.
It's harder to.
It might be impossible. Bro, take a fucking walk,
Well,
mate.
unless you're German.
Yeah, that's
Take a day off.
There you go. There's the source.
Yeah, the only difference between playing angry is like you're just gonna high roll everything.
Right.
Every 3-bet combo is pure. Every bluff is pure.
Yeah, Sven's randomizer got broken. It's just 50 plus now.
I see it all the time, man. Like someone loses a hand instantly, and like next hand, bang, 3-bet.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like with a combo that does 3-bet, but they didn't fucking roll for it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
No,
just a snap.
that's me for sure. You're not special. You need bankroll management as much as others.
Hoorah.
You are the fish if you don't know how to exploit your opponents at your table. Let's see. Number 8, winning at poker is not cool. It doesn't require any fancy lines. Solid, simple, and patience will win in the long term. Number 9, worrying about poker players' winnings or financial situations and engaging in drama is the ultimate loser behavior.
Oh.
I actually like this thread a lot. He bangs. Number 10, what matters is making the correct plays at a real poker table and real opponents, not solver approved plays. I think that needs to be elaborated on quite a bit.
I mean, he's just going for
understood.
the clickbait, but I get it.
Yeah, I get it. At least he buried it.
It's number 10. It's
right.
Number 10.
Number 11, early mid-game in tournaments, in poker tournaments is quite boring.
Facts.
You play tight and patient. In late game, you can turn into a psycho going after scared and weak
I like
opponents.
how can is in parentheses. Like you have the option, but you also don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to. Tight is right works in MTTs.
But you can.
Number 12, big ego in poker equals broke. Number 13, moving down in stakes is a superpower. It's also a luxury. I would say that for most, this doesn't even exist. If you're
stuck
losing,
in 1-3, you
if
can't
you're
go.
losing 1-3 player, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
If you're if you're losing 100 200 player, the next step down is like 10-20, and it might be a tougher game.
10, 20, 40 on most days.
It depends.
There's a lot of other games in the middle, right?
No.
25,
There's
50?
not
Nowhere.
really like there isn't really like public quarter 50.
Yeah. Literally none. Quarter 50 is like such a foreign stake live.
Yeah, I feel like I never see it.
When it runs, it's quarter 50, 100, and anybody with half a brain says, "Let's
Yeah.
get the $25 chipped
But
off the table."
I think like this is that's good advice for like the mid stakes or upper to mid stakes, right? If you're playing 10-20 and the game's pretty
5-10.
bad, like go play 5-10 if the game's good, right?
Yeah.
If you're playing 5-10 and it's just a bunch of wrecks, but the 2-5 looks good, go play the 2-5.
That's where it gets
5
tough.
to 10-20, or for online cash players.
Online
if
for
those
sure.
exist anymore.
Online for sure, and MTT players for sure. If you're losing at your $1,100 average buy-in, start playing 400s. Start grinding the 500s. I think it's very difficult jumping from 510 to 2.5.
I mean, because it's such a big jump from 2.5 to 5.10.
Correct. And the inverse also is very felt.
But now they've added in, at least here, they've added in that like 5-10 3K cap a lot of places.
That's true. That is true. You have the option to play a myriad of 510s from uncapped all the way down to like 2K.
I feel like the way they've restructured all the buy-ins and the different games here in Vegas, there's a pathway now to move up. Like Venetian has like they have a 2-4 game.
Really?
Yeah, they have a
1200
it's
max.
2-4 1200 max, I think.
That's so
right.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
I hate it.
No,
It's
it's good. It's good for different options, different things people can move up.
I think live. I
They
think
have 1, 3, 2, 4, and 2, 5.
and then but there's I think they have.
I think it's
5-5.
I think the problem.
sure.
I think
Maybe
the
it's
problem
2.5.
live is that you want separation by chip color. Like games are bad when you have a white chip game that's played at a red chip stake, right? Like basically, my point being is like you don't want to play 2.5 where the majority of people are buying in for white chips, and that's what 2.4 becomes, right? It's like
What the fuck is a white chip?
a dollar chip.
No, nobody's buying into those games. I play 2-3 and there's no $1 chips on the table.
How?
There's no $1 chips.
People are buying
It's all
in for
it's all
stacks of
green.
dollar
It's all
chips?
green and red.
and everybody
The
else is
the
15.
2-3 games all green and red.
Green being
Who the hell
$25.
buys in stacks of dollar chips?
Well, I mean,
Just like short buying.
don't you have to play the blinds?
Yes, and people have like literally like less than $10 of their brown chips at the Jewel.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's when they're
I mean,
blue.
just generally speaking, throughout the course of cash history, you always want to, anytime that you can make the lowest denomination chip the next one up, you want to do that, right? Like Venetian 510 was always way better than every other game in town
because
it was $10 chips.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with that. I know what you're saying, but yeah, like I just think that like now I think like these $1 chips don't really exist in the games except for maybe some 1-2.
Right.
But like. Yeah, I just think it's nice to have different. You can go all over town and you can find a deep stacked 2-3 game. You can find a short stack deep, you know, and up you go. So you have different options.
I do agree
to
at the
move up.
lowest levels through like call it the 1K cap 2.555, whatever you want to call it. I or even like the 1500 at the win. I think that there's a real smorgasbord of opportunity there depending on where you're at in your bankroll. Like I really think that like what Ben's advice here is of being able to step down in stakes is a superpower. Like oftentimes it's just changing venue, right? And just playing a lower cap game now as opposed to the 1500 cap at the win or whatever. And there's so much game selection there.
Right.
But I think once you graduate out of the $1,500 cap into like 2K cap plus, the game selection is almost nil. Right. And it's a big jump to go from like 2K cap to 1K cap.
I guess their form of moving down could just be selling more.
Yeah. Assuming that you're beating the game or that the game isn't
just
too
risk
tough.
management.
Yeah, like
that is a big part of it.
It is kind of confusing, like when he says moving down in stakes is a superpower. Does he mean moving down because of your bankroll situation, or does he mean moving down because of game selection?
Right.
So I in the past,
those are two different things.
Well, in the past, we would have said that it's competition,
right?
Because there was such a big disparity between like the lowest stakes and the next stake up and so on and so forth. But now I think you have pros at all levels. I think you have pro 25 cent, 50 cent grinders. I think you have pro like 5 cent, 10 cent grinders, you know, and maybe the caliber isn't the same, but it's not going to be so great that like you go from a very small win rate at like 500 NL to like having 10x that win rate at 200 NL or even 100 NL, right? It's probably
Especially
pretty
as the
gradual.
rake, like, goes
Yeah.
up.
So it probably almost certainly is a bankroll consideration or even a confidence thing. Like sometimes it's just good to go down and play smaller and play a little wiffle ball or what feels like
Or,
wiffle ball
you're
stake
practicing
wise.
new stuff that you've learned.
Yeah, or even executing on things that you might be afraid to pull the trigger on at the higher cost. I think all of that is worth a lot. That actually might be one of the more powerful of the 14.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I haven't done much of.
Yeah.
Like moving down just as a way to get some more like confident reps in.
That's what
Right.
I was gonna say is reps. That's how I look at it. Just putting in reps.
Well, so you guys have an advantage that none of us ever had. We had to do this for money, but like you can get in a lot of reps versus the trainer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not your environment, but like it's better almost. You know, you get battle tested versus the fucking best in the world,
Right.
literally.
Yeah.
Which is a really fascinating way to go about it because you're obviously not being paid to play the trainer. But man, imagine, you know, people who are dedicated to that sort of craft. They have to come out of it more confidently. You know, you're executing like 88, 90% against the trainer.
Yeah, but I think if you're playing low stakes cash, like experience in the pool is worth so much.
Agreed. I do agree with
I
that.
mean, it's just worth like so much. Like, I think, yeah, you could be really good at the trainer, but I would rather take someone who's been playing that pool for 3 years straight.
I do very much agree with you in that regard. Assuming that they're sensitive to the environment.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is not that they're overly influenced, because I don't want the guy who is changing his mind on a dime,
Right.
based
Well, they
off
have
of
to have,
this
like, a
person or that.
baseline.
Exactly. I want somebody who's just like going to be very hard fast and saying like, okay, I know this about these players, I know this about this pool, and I exploit very specific to that. I'm going to execute my strategy, and then if it starts to fail, we can discuss and maybe move off of it. Those guys are tough. I think the most powerful one in all of this.
Did we read all 14?
The 14th one was just folding good hands on the river is mandatory. Don't
Okay.
fall in love with your top pairs versus 3 barrels.
Here we just pay. So.
Right, we just pay here.
Actually,
right, yeah.
we just pay.
This is tournament advice, okay? Don't call triple barrels in tournaments, but in cash, fuck
yeah,
these guys.
definitely don't call rivers in tournaments.
But yeah, I mean, again, we talked about this yesterday, but when it comes to just paying, oftentimes it's an avoidance of making a larger compounding mistake of a mistake that you already made. The reason why you feel like you're beaten whenever you're put into a spot to just pay is probably because you fucked up a street prior.
Yeah, like you're too loose on flop
Yeah.
or turn.
Yeah, or you missed a check raise somewhere,
Yep.
you know, whatever the case may be. I actually think, for me personally, the most powerful one out of all this is number 2. Statistics don't have a memory. Just because you ran bad for the last few weeks doesn't mean that you will run better.
The do theory.
Well, it's also the inverse,
Right. It's like,
right?
yeah.
Just because things have been going continually well doesn't necessarily mean
It'll always go well.
that it'll
So
always go
me.
well, or B, that it's going to stop.
I feel like whenever I'm running good, I feel worse.
Me too.
Because I'm like, oh, it's coming.
Yes, me too.
Like I'm running so good, that means the regression to the mean's gonna be so brutal.
Painful. Yes.
This is literally
But
like.
then when I'm running bad, I'm like, well,
It's never
regression
gonna
to
end.
the mean's
Right.
gonna be.
Right.
At least when I run good, it's gonna feel great. Like
I think it's never gonna end.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like that, but it's. I almost feel like it's better than when I'm running good, and I feel like it's just coming.
Yeah,
The other shoe's gonna drop.
I ran so great in January, like everything just smooth, you know. And then February came, and it was like you knew. I kind
of
of
a
said,
sudden,
I
it's
knew it was
like-
coming too. I'm like, well, this is not gonna last forever. And then boom, you just like cooler.
I know.
And like holy
but
shit.
I almost feel like when you expect the regression to the mean, then it's like
Not as
it can
painful?
almost make it worse though, because once it started, here it is,
Yes.
and then it's like this whole.
It's a
this whole,
self-fulfilling
well,
prophecy.
all
I guess now I'm gonna run really bad,
So-
and then it's like you start making like errors because you're expecting
Right.
to run.
You
bad.
also forget about neutral. You forget about just like
Yeah, running on
even.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's either
Right.
like the extremely above or
Yeah.
extremely below.
Right.
It's never
a lot of
between.
times I'm like if I have a very small win, I'm like, I kind of ran neutral today, and I had a small win. That's probably about what's supposed to happen.
Right.
Right.
I'm like,
And-
oh, it's coming.
Well, like what I've been trying to think of is like this running hot and this running bad and all this. None of this matters
doesn't
until
matter.
I can look at 1,000-hour sample and
Yeah.
say, okay, this is how I'm actually doing.
Yeah, I agree with
Right.
that.
So I just kind of like, I'm going to run really, really good. And then I'm going to run really, really bad. And I don't know how long either one is going to last. But at the end of 1,000 hours, I should probably have a pretty good idea of my win rate.
Yeah. I think
That's
that's
like a normal guy way of looking at
Right.
it. I'm like ill. So I'm like, oh my God, things are going too well. This is like how I am in normal life.
It's
though.
it's the sword of Damocles because
I don't know what the
you're
hell
gonna
that
need to
is.
elaborate on
Yeah.
that one, buddy.
Oh, you don't know the
I'm
sword of
not, I'm not a
Damocles? Come on,
Greek
Berk.
god.
well, the point is like when you expect something to drop, like the bad stuff is gonna happen, but it doesn't actually exist. It
Yeah.
only exists because you think it
Because
exists.
it's
so you can't enjoy the present
That's the
because you're too
framework
busy.
of my life. Is that
Right.
it's literally, which is why poker is so much of a like an allegory for people's lives and the way they go about their
Oh,
lives.
Like,
for sure.
Oh no, like something's gonna happen, and you can't actually enjoy the stuff that's happening in the
Yeah.
moment because you're too busy
The
focused.
better I
on
run, the
pin
more
dropping.
scared I am because I know how bad it's gonna be when it goes bad.
When it's not even gonna be that
It
bad.
might not. Yeah, I might just be fine.
You are just gonna be
It
fine.
never runs bad for some
I'm like,
people.
oh my god, but I do run pretty good, so I don't know.
I think that it's also part of like the callous mind that you begin to develop with the just pay, right? Like when you're running well and you're paying and you're still winning and like you get that reinforcement, then whenever you start to like things start to turn.
You keep running into top of range. And
Yeah. When you're running good and you just pay, they're just bluffing.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're running bad, they just always have it.
Right, so you have something to default back to, and the thing is that what will ultimately happen is you'll go from fully paying to mostly paying
To not paying.
sometimes
Yeah.
paying to
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
paying,
right.
and like
then that it extends your downswing. 'cause
Yeah,
you're
if you
changing
allow-
your
Now you miss all
strategy.
these spots.
if you allow it to regress that far. But what actually it once you become like pretty calloused and you understand just like the inner workings of the game, you generally don't get past the sometimes paying part, right? Which is actually a pretty good place to be, especially if you're downswinging, because what it means is that you're being like really considerate of how money gets put into the pot. And when you're winning, there's almost this aspect of winner's tilt
Yeah.
where you don't even consider about how many big blinds are about to go in the middle.
Right.
It's like, well, if I'm wrong here, I'm gonna
whatever.
I'm gonna make quads so soon anyway. So
Right. It's like, oh, well, whatever. So this is a 300 big
Yeah.
blind jam into a 100 big blind pot. Well, we'll run it twice, and I'm at
Right.
least live to my gut shot flush draw here. You know?
and
It's like,
I've hit a bunch of those lately. So
right, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just like, whatever. And you kind of aren't that concerned with your strategy because it feels like your strategy is just executing itself.
yeah,
And whatever happens, happens. But as you begin to regress, you start to become a lot more critical of the strategy, which forces you to be mindful
is
of how money
true.
goes in.
that is the good part about sort of like when you regress, it kind of forces you to hone the craft a bit more.
Right. Or if you're
I mean,
conscientious
you
of it.
You probably should be doing that all the time.
Yeah. But if you're Chicken Little and you're only worried about
The
how
sky is
bad
falling.
it
The
is.
sky is falling.
Yeah, see, he knows his nursery rhymes.
It's a movie.
Well, it is a movie too, but
It's a nursery rhyme.
I don't know if it's a nursery rhyme or
It's a
like.
movie, man. I know Chicken
It was
Little.
it was something way before
it was a movie.
Book it.
Whether it's a,
It was a nursery rhyme.
well, I don't know if it's a nursery rhyme or like what
No,
are
it's
those?
not like Mother Goose.
A fable?
Yeah, it's a fable. Thank you, Brian. I'm like, what are those stories called?
Yeah.
It's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Like, is there a movie? Maybe. I don't know, but it was something
There should
prior.
be.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I gotta know.
if you're obsessed with like the downswing and that's the forefront of your focus, then you actually lose sight of your strategy altogether. You lose sight of the areas where you could be more critical, be more mindful of, you continue to make those early street mistakes that lead to these really difficult late street decisions instead of just like, re-examining your entire flop strategy, your C-bet strategy, your calling strategy, whatever, which can prevent a lot of that and maybe mitigate the risk as you're kind of getting. Go ahead. What have you learned?
Wow. Chicken Little is a 1943 short film created by Disney during World War II, directed by Clyde. The short was based on the European
Clyde.
folktale.
Folktale.
It's based on a
Folklore.
European folktale called Henny Penny, known in the United States as Chicken Little. It's an anti-Nazi film showing the evils
Oh.
of mass hysteria.
I didn't know it was about.
That's how it started.
Wow. It all comes back to political propaganda.
Yeah.
huh?
The short was
Makes sense.
remade into a full-length film in 2005.
That's the one you know.
That's the one
You
I
were
know.
6.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't know how they squeeze 90 minutes out of the Chicken Little fable. There isn't a whole lot of meat on that bone.
Yeah.
It's just a chicken that's afraid that the sky is
I'm
falling.
sure
Did
they,
they make
just,
Humpty
they just
Dumpty
made
into a
his
movie?
mom die or
Yeah.
something.
I feel like they did make Humpty Dumpty into a movie.
Chicken Little meets Sword of Damocles. I can't live life anymore. The sky is
What
falling.
is this sword?
That's me, the sword guy.
Sword guy.
The sword's gonna fall,
I'm gonna die in
and
here.
we're all dying.
We're all dying. All right, so this dovetails nicely into the tip of the day that I put up yesterday. I was kind of inspired by the game I was playing. I showed up yesterday late, got into the second game, playing 100-100. It was mostly regs. Game was okay, winning small. And
These
then
emojis, man.
I know, you got to,
It's
man.
so,
it's
like,
part of it.
Facebook boomer.
What are you talking about? Have you seen the tips of the days on Twitter? This is how we roll, baby. I am just merely emulating my environment.
I like this quit smoking.
The cigarette.
Yeah.
That's right. You got to quit. You got to know when to quit. So my game broke, and they made it 10-handed for me in the main because whale, obviously.
Yeah.
And the game was just unbelievable. The average stack, we were playing 100, 200. The average stack was probably like $90,000. There was one person with $500,000, another person with
People are in
300K.
town for the Super Bowl, or
Yeah, yesterday was the last day.
Okay.
So a lot of action. There was 2 players with 300K in front of them. Another gentleman to my left who initially had like 150K. And bro, I mean, you've never seen anything like this. In a bomb pot, it came Jack 10 8, 2 clubs, checked all the way to the cutoff, bet 500 into 5K, button calls, hijack, just jams, 72,000.
On Jack 10-8?
Yeah, Jack 10 8, 2 clubs. Jams 72,000. Cutoff folds, which was me. Button, this gentleman who has like 150K in front of him goes, okay, you run it twice? And the guy goes, yeah, I'll run it twice. He goes, okay, I call. The person who shoved, Queen 9 of clubs.
Wow.
Jack 10 8, 2 clubs.
That's
Oh,
good.
Jesus
yeah,
fucking
The guy who
Christ.
called,
He has,
red
like,
9-8 offsuit.
Oh boy. How many times you want to run this?
He didn't win. He didn't get any of
No,
it.
he
He got
didn't
none
get
of
it,
it.
yeah.
This is a 140K
What?
pot with just, a dead hand.
Running
Just
bad
2
today.
fucking napkins. My hand was better. I at least had the Jack of clubs. Actually, that doesn't matter, I guess,
No,
in
it
this
doesn't.
instance. But anyway, so that was to give you an idea of how the game was playing. I had like 180K in front of me. The shortest stack at the table, I think, was like 55,000. So the game was just like unbelievable. We're playing 1-2. Often the 4 is on. There are times when the 8 is on. We're playing stand up. Like the game is just outrageous. And it dawned on me like how fortunate I am to finally be in a position where I don't have to send a text. I don't have to feel any sort of pressure in the situation. I have 150,000 in front of me, and if I get stacked, that's okay. There's more in the box. We can reload and we can play. And I don't know that I've ever been in a spot playing where I'm gambling for high stakes and I'm that well rolled.
Thanks, Airball.
Yeah, thanks.
Hashtag thanks,
Thanks,
Airball.
Nikhil. Appreciate you, buddy. But yeah, so it dawned on me like how much of a fight and stress and tax my entire career has been being in these spots. And, this isn't the biggest stakes that I've had to do this at, right?
You made it.
I've played upwards of 10x this, where same pressure, right? You have 200 big blinds in front of you, and playing it all in pot is really scary because you only have 2 reloads, period. Not like available to you tonight, but maybe for your entirety of being in this
Your
particular
life.
game, right? And yeah, it's a hard fall from grace to go from playing like a 1K 2K game to then having to saddle up and go play 10 20 40 the next day because you just lost your piece of the steak. And it made me realize that like a lot of people are suffering through this, maybe not to this extreme where they're playing nosebleeds, but a lot of people are going to find themselves in a good game that turns into the biggest game of their life. There's good and the thing is these are going to be really high EV spots, right? We had people drinking, we had people gambling. Like a guy played $150,000 pot with a fucking pair of napkins. Like there's a lot of EV to be made.
So insane.
But if you can't pull up a chair and actually execute a strategy properly, you're never going to collect that EV. There was a point where we were playing stand-up game and the 16 was on. I limped 10s under the gun. The 9-8 guy limps behind, and it gets open to like 9,000 behind me. And I just jam 120K with 10s. Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Call with
You might
aces.
get called by 9s. Right? It's just like, that's just decent strategy.
Fold out jacks.
Yeah. Well, no.
How much fucking folding jack?
Not based off of who limped and who
Yeah.
raised. Google Bro was getting after it last night, and he certainly did not have any 2 cards that touched, matched, or had the same suit, because otherwise he would have looked at me and said, I like you, I call. And we would have been off to some sort of race.
We gotta get Google Bro on the pod.
He wants to come on the pod. I'm gonna have him on. It's gonna be great. You guys have to meet Maurice. He's fantastic.
Everybody needs to know who Google Bro is.
Yes, I agree. The world needs to know.
Is he related to Timestamp, bro?
Yes.
The broverse runs deep.
The broverse does run
There's
deep.
a whole multiverse.
Yeah, it's a whole bro university. You know, it's a bro fraternity, if you
have
will.
a bro panel.
Google bro, timestamp bro,
Landon would be head.
dishwasher bro,
Oh, get dishwasher bro in here because he didn't
water
put-
cooler bro.
Yeah,
Is that
and-
Rudy?
No, dishwasher bro's the guy that came to fix our dishwasher
Yeah.
and then never put it back in. So now when you pull the drawer out, it just falls out.
Right.
Jeez.
We have this like really expensive dishwasher that's in like a cage or a frame or whatever. And when the dishwasher bro came to fix it,
Like 4 times.
he pulled it out, but like when he put it back in, it's clear he didn't do it with like any sort of
He didn't screw it back in.
yeah, whatever. And now every
Yeah.
time you pull out the bottom rack, the whole
The whole
thing just
dishwasher
tips
falls
forward.
out.
So have
It's
we called him
ridiculous.
back?
Wow.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get him on a panel to ask what the hell's wrong with him. Why the, like you come 4 times and you don't screw the goddamn dishwasher
that's
back in?
I didn't know.
Come
You
on.
get him on the panel.
Get him on the
ASAP.
panel.
And water jug bro.
He comes Mondays.
Who literally, yeah, but he ignored us for like a month.
Yeah. That's true. Well, actually,
We had
I
a
know
sick pyramid though.
I know what happened there. All of the empty jugs were inside. He called me because he won't replace it unless it's a 1-to-1. He called me and I just ignored it because I'm like, why is Tahoe Springs calling me? Leave me the fuck alone. And then I realized what happened.
We're gonna dehydrate in here.
we didn't
Okay,
get
so he doesn't have to come to the panel.
it's not Tahoe Spring bro guy.
He's off the panel.
He's off the panel.
You're safe
anyway,
for now, buddy.
Anyway, I realized that like a lot of people probably suffer from this where, you know, they're just playing a casual 2-5 game where they don't really know if it's good or not or whatever. And then suddenly the dream of all dreams sits down and they take the cap off because he's a special player. And now they're playing 2-5-10, sometimes 20. And you're in the biggest game where you're not rolled for it. And I know that I've personally put myself in this spot hundreds of times throughout my career. Lamanna can attest. Bankroll on table.
Brought bro.
Case money.
I'm
He
brought,
was,
bro.
he was
That's
case money,
brought,
bro.
Yeah. Bankroll on table, bro. And it's scary because like for me, I'm pretty good at disassociating the actual risk.
Just in general.
Yes, just in general. But I was always pretty good at disassociating like the actual current risk I was undertaking from you know the detriment of what would happen if things went poor. and I was able to just like play and execute my strategy, and that allowed me to collect the EV that I deserved, but it also just put me in harm's way so often. Like my risk of ruin was always just through the roof, and ignoring that is really bad because if you don't have a way to replenish, then you are just ruined. And it made me realize like there are some tips and tricks that if I could go back to my younger self and advise to do better, I would lend him these
What's the max percentage of his bankroll you would tell him to?
like 25. I think
that's
and the way that I phrased it in this list, I guess, is I said limit your risk to an amount that is able to be retrieved at your normal stakes. So there's obviously a lot of EV attached to these shorts or to these games, and
Socially frowned upon.
and if you just limit your buy-ins, like if you don't buy in deep to cover the whale or whatever, but you just keep buying in for 100 big blinds, like yeah, short stacking these spots, it's going to be frowned upon by your table mates, but there's a fuck ton of EV when people are
public
just
game, I guess.
splashing around, you know, and you're only 50 big blinds deep and you just get to be all in a bunch.
I can't get over these couple emojis next to
They're
friends.
amazing, yes.
You got to respect the friends.
I like
all holding
that
hands.
you broke Matt Hunt's brain with this post because he
Thought
just
I was trolling?
Well, no, because like the tip of the day is, you know, it's kind of a meme, and you know, you came out with some actually good advice, and he was like, "Wait, this is supposed to be me? This is actually good advice.
That's
Isn't
the
it good
point.
advice?"
That's the fucking point.
Blurring the line
That-
between meme and real.
The
Yeah.
thing is like that's the biggest point that I've been trying to make since I started the tip of the day is that
There's a little
it's so-
truth into all. of it.
No, is that
That's it. You figured it out, B.
Yeah, you fucking nailed it. You were one of them. You're who I'm talking to. Is that
That's
the
the
general
target
audience sees these threads and they have no fucking idea if what they're reading is good advice or not.
Why is Conrad getting naked?
No one knows.
I can't believe you didn't just click to him for him doing what he did to you in the opening of the show, Guap.
What do you mean? You
So-
show my six pack?
That's right.
Pretzels and
Fat
pizza.
abs.
See a nipple. I don't
So
know.
the thing is that like when these threads pop up, people read them and they cling to something that like personally resonates with them. They go, yeah, that is true. But it's really fucking easy to craft a message.
Well, it's like play less hands,
Right.
And then they're like, yeah,
Yes, it just-
I'm right.
It preys upon the things that they're already weak at, and it just solidifies in their minds that they're doing the necessary things to get better at the game. And that was the whole point of me starting this meme. It had nothing to do with specifically Jonathan or specifically Alec or specifically Ben or anybody else that does these threads. It has everything to do with the culture of these threads and like how harmful they can be if somebody isn't out there like spelling it out to the general audience saying like, okay.
I mean, I feel like if someone's determined to confirm their biases, they will, though.
I
So,
generally
like,
agree with that.
If they'll just read something that doesn't resonate and be like, yeah, whatever, and then they'll read something that does and be like, yeah, true, and then they'll just like keep.
Yeah.
That's why poker's
It's not just poker, obviously.
Well, yeah,
the
like,
general
with
media
everything.
does this too. There's a reason this marketing tactic works.
Right. Like, so I think it's not really saving anybody because they're just gonna confirm their biases anyway if they're.
I think that's true.
skewed
My
towards
problem
that.
is profiting off of that. I don't like the idea of profiteering off of like people's obvious weaknesses. It's almost like social engineering a mass profit train based off of the fact of like how predictably how predictable it is to easily manipulate people into doing what you want them to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is selling them
Like
some
the
sort of
guys
panacea.
that sell courses on how to be alpha
Yes,
male or
precisely. It's a great example,
Yeah.
right? Like when you just take a fabricated
they just
idea.
want to hear that. They want to be told
Yeah.
what they want to hear.
You just take a fabricated idea that it's rooted in nothing except for the insecurities of a certain populace, and then you say like, "Oh, I'll sell you the thing that will take that insecurity
Yeah.
away." Right? Like to me, that's problematic, and I'm not even saying
all women are whores and join my group so you can learn how to manipulate them. I'll show you how to pick up women by negging them.
suck on that gas.
Suck on this gas, bitch, and join my OnlyFans where I show my cock.
God, we've taken a hard turn left.
All right.
But yeah, so like maybe there is no place in the poker community for somebody to call this stuff out and to dissect these threads. But I do feel like the community is small. It's very, very small and small enough where there's only a handful of people that actually have the attention of most. So for that reason, I wanted to do this. Anyway, all that to say that I do think that there's value in sharing, reasonable advice when you can. And that was kind of the impetus of this is like, okay, I'm going to put out some really funny meme tips of the day. And I'm also going to put out like decent tips of the day. And like whatever people take away from them, let them, because that seems to be what we've decided is apropos, I guess, in this space. But with regards to like playing in games that you didn't expect to be so large or whatever the case may be, the four major things that I wish I had known when I was younger is one, you can just quit. You can quit the game even though it's a high EV spot. And this is something that I think is like totally missed by most, except for people that we would kind of like banish into the nit camp. Like, I've had friends, I don't think Lamanna really qualifies, but like, he's close. He's very close.
I think he's edging away from that.
He's much better now, but there was a point where
this
he was
this is like the inner tortoise.
Yes,
right?
the inner tortoise voice is very strong. Like there was a point where he was like, I don't even want to play 5-10. Like 2-5 is just my jam.
To make a living at 2-5. Why do I want to play against tougher competition?
Right. So
it's like, why do I want to do the thing that's hard that's going to make me better?
That's exactly. Go read Bencb's thread. But like I think he was really good at risk management. So for him walking away from a plus EV spot, if he knew that the peril would be he was out of action or he would have to drop down to 1-3 or whatever the case may be, may have been a lot easier for him. Where for me it was just like, fuck it, I don't care. Like this EV spot is way too high for me to pass on.
You're the exact opposite side.
Exactly. It's like if I can make 10K in this 5-10 game and never have to worry about bankroll again at 2-5, I'm going to take that shot. And if I miss, I'll play 1-3.
Yeah.
Fine. I don't care. But I think for most, you really need to be good at risk assessment and you need to be able to manage it pretty aggressively and ask yourself, like, how bad is it if everything goes to shit here? And if it's bad, quit. Because a lot of times what happens is you're kind of grandfathered into these games. It's not a game that you signed up to play where you were, oh, that game's really fucking great and there's a seat, I'm going to sit. No, it's a game that you're sitting in already that's pretty shit, and something came and changed, and everybody envies your seat all of a sudden, and you feel that. You feel the pressure to say, like, people would pay me right now for my seat. How could I walk away?
Sell it.
Yeah,
I've seen that happen. Like I was
bought
at it, and
seats.
I was so in shock that because it was a reg, sold his seat for $40
To me.
Well, that was a different time. But this has happened multiple times. Like where they'll sell their seat for like $40, and it's like they're professional, and it's like the best table in the world, and they're usually playing these stakes. I was just like in shock.
It was win 2-5, and I'm pretty sure it was win 2-5, and the guy sold the seat for $40 to me, and I ended up cashing out like $2,500 within like an hour.
Nice.
I think that was at MGM,
but
it's happened I've seen it happen multiple times.
Oh, it was MGM. You're right, because it was
when
the shit rig that's always there.
Yeah, and it was that old guy who was super drunk.
Yep, we were having a ball.
That guy was
I
fun.
couldn't believe he left. He plays poker every day of his life. How do you leave that scenario?
That's what I'm saying. Like I was
Maybe-
so shocked.
Maybe he had to. You know, maybe he realized you can't have an edge if you're scared money in the game.
Right.
You know?
I mean,
Well,
that's
some
that's
people,
actually
like,
fair.
try and make it the lowest variance possible.
Right.
It seems.
Right. They prefer to play a game where c-bet and win is going to be a consistent
Like
theme.
they want to play a really passive table where everyone's limping. They get to see a flop, and then they get to take it down on the flop.
Right. Like guaranteed 3 big blinds per hour while foregoing the risk of what it would take to make 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe they're probably even breaking even.
Yeah.
But I think like the bankroll management, it's kind of why I sort of disagree when people give like those rules for like you need to have this many buy-ins.
Right.
Because everyone's risk tolerance is different, and
For sure.
everyone's like replenishability is different. So you have to like sort of go internally to like what you're comfortable with.
And that's really the takeaway here is everybody should have a risk profile outlined. You shouldn't be flying blind.
Yeah.
You should have some sort of understanding of like what your risk propensity is naturally. And then on top of that, what you can actually physically risk without putting yourself in peril.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a really big part of it is just understanding the risk as a whole. And if you can't tolerate this one, just quit the game. It's okay. It's not ideal, but like it's fine. There are better options though, like selling action to your friend to limit your downside. It's nice to share the wealth with your friends. You know, if you're in a massive game where you feel like your win rate just quadrupled, but you need to lay half of it off, that's okay. You can sell half and still your win rate doubled. You know, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
You'll be able to take some risk off the table. And this is really critical if you do so because the risk is now inherent to your stack depth, right? So maybe the amount of money you're into the game for isn't that big of a deal to you. You know, you're into the game for 2 or 3 of your normal buy-ins, whatever, but you've run it up. And now you have like 15 or 18 or 20 buy-ins in front of you. And you run the risk of playing like a 5K big blind pot. Sell half. Take a little profits, you know? Bitcoin hit 50K, it's okay. Sell 10%, you know?
Yeah.
You know, gamble with your winnings. It's fine.
Reach out to your crypto friends and ask
That's
them to
right.
buy a piece.
They'll understand. And then last one is think of your stack in terms of big blinds. Your strategy shouldn't alter just because you have more dollars in front of you. And I think this is a really critical one where if you can't perform in this sort of strategic way, then again, you should defer back to number 1 and just quit the game, right? Because if you're thinking like, oh my God, I have $6,500 in front of me. The most I've ever played with before was $2,200. This is an astronomical amount of money, but it's 650 big blinds. You've probably played 650 big blinds before, right? And if you're not able to distinguish between the two, if you can't differentiate and you're constantly focused on how many dollars are in every pot, how much money is actually in front of you, how much risk you're taking on, you're not in a spot to execute a winning strategy.
Also, if you just like feel yourself like tighten up,
Exactly.
and just your body physically tightens up. Like it's a very physical sensation when
Agreed.
you're uncomfortable in a game, and I think like that can be a really good signal of when you need to de-risk.
Yeah, I agree. Have any of you guys run into situations like this in the last year, 2 years, something like that, where games are just like transformed into a dreamlike state that you could have never imagined whenever you set out to go play that day?
Unfortunately, not yet.
Well, you're at the wrong venue.
Yeah.
That's obvious. You're not getting walk-ins at the South Point.
Sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, but not to the, I don't think it's ever made me feel uncomfortable though. Like when it starts to play bigger, because I just know how much the upside increased.
Right. Which means that you're just rolled.
Yeah. But yeah.
What about when you're playing the Resorts World games?
That is like, it doesn't transform. It starts like that.
Okay. So that's a little bit different.
And honestly, it's just like, you need so much money because there's the double board bomb pots every 30 minutes.
Mhm.
There's the bounty hand. There's stand-up game. So it's just it just gets so insane. But that's like, that game is when I've felt like that because you're playing with people who have like 40K on the table.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
It's funny because this actually did happen like very recently where I was playing the 2-3 game and I went to the bathroom, come back, and they're like, we're just gonna put the straddle on. We're gonna do a round of straddles. I was like, and like it was my straddle, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, put it on.
Nobody else puts it on.
I get
after.
stacked that hand. I get ace king and I run into kings.
Right.
But whatever. But like, so then I reload and I'm just like, okay, well this is now just like 100 big blind game, and it's going to be a volatile game, and like it was funny to see the people clam up.
Yeah.
You could see, and it was just like, oh, this is like a good spot for me because like I understand what I'm doing with 100 big blinds. I understand it. Like I've played in 2-5 games before. Like this maybe now this is too big for some people, and some people actually did just rack up and leave. Right. Some people racked up and leave. A lot of other people that were playing crazy now all of a sudden tightened up, and so like the environment changed. Like it's not just for you. You should be aware of how the environment changes
That's
for
true,
everybody
too.
else at the table.
That's true too. And oftentimes some of these dream scenarios will present in a way where everybody else gets so tight in the ass that you get
Your
the
head's up
lion's
with the
share.
whale.
Yeah, you get the lion's share of the guy providing all the action.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Landon?
Well, I mean, this happened to me 2 years ago when I first came out to Bobby's with
Oh,
the whole
yeah.
Lana situation.
Lana wrecked you.
Yeah, this is when I got sent to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like I was going to Bobby's or Bellagio to play 5-10 or 10-20. Like I was playing 20-40 for a while, but it wasn't going too well. So I was like, okay, just don't play 20-40. I said, okay, cool, no problem. And then Lana comes in. I was playing 10-20 at the time. She then wants to play 10-20-40. Starts putting on the 80. And then people start leaving because they don't want to play that game.
Yeah.
So now it's 3-handed and starts to slowly fill up. So it's me, Reg, and her. And then it ends up getting 7-handed where people kind of fill in. And I have like 20K on the table at this time, and it's like, hey, like you're not supposed to play 20-40, but at the time it's like I don't really know what to do, and nobody else is awake at the moment. Like I was talking with the people that had action, and they fell asleep. So now they said, don't play this game. This game is clearly a spot that would be an exception because someone that doesn't exist in the environment has come in. So I talked with Christian, who was there at the time. He's like, I think it's fine. You should just play and then deal with whatever happens after the fact. So I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. End up playing a 40K pot with kings and a 4-bet pot versus 6-5 off on 7-6.
Good spot.
7-6-3 and ran once, just like drills off the
Nice to play with stolen money, isn't
drills
it?
off a straight, and then like I'm just stuck 40K when I wasn't even supposed to be playing this game or something along those lines. And then it's 7 a.m. and then friend wakes up and he's like, what the fuck happened? Like we said you couldn't play that game.
Yeah.
And then back and forth happens. Chewy becomes like the peacemaker and says, if we knew that we were going to play a 40K pot with kings versus 6-5 off, I think we're okay with this action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just fucking sucks because in that spot, like I want to do what's right for the people that have action, but also if they knew about the spot, they'd be okay with it. At the same time, I just lost 20K. So how okay are they going to really be with it?
It's the big thing is that nobody got to manage the risk. We're all happy. Everybody involved, yourself, the investors, everybody is happy with the spot, but nobody actually got to mitigate the risk.
Like, well, that's the thing with the Resorts World game. I always had a max exposure.
Right.
So I knew that there was a max that I and the people buying my action could lose. But it's still not comfy because I didn't really have enough reloads. Like that's a game
Right.
you need a lot of reloads.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like in that situation that Landon just described, it's like, well, maybe the collective would prefer that you have 5 4K buy-ins over one 20K buy-in, right? And just put yourself at max volatility versus this whale. When that stuff is never discussed, or in the instance that we're like speaking to the audience here, when you never think about those things ahead of time, you really get caught off guard, and you find yourself in a scenario where it's like, for Landon, he just kind of ran bad and ran himself into a spot. But for a lot of other people, they'll just find themselves in a situation where they're gambling with way too much money, way too much risk, and now they're playing pretty poorly because of it.
And it's easy to get swept up in the action.
Exactly.
And those are the games with the most action.
Precisely.
So you get swept up really easily.
I do think that that's a thing that a lot of people just forget about, is that at the end of the day, poker is still an arena that you can gamble, and you can gamble pretty hard. And when these environments present themselves to you, it becomes very, very easy to be the guy who is no longer playing strategically correct, but instead the guy who's just like in there.
I'm not gonna lie, the first couple of games I played a bounty hand, like I went off.
Yeah.
Just popped off. You flopped a boat and got paid.
Yeah, when you're suddenly just like,
no, I didn't have anything. I had the bounty hand. I was trying to win the bounty.
You're crazy.
Yeah,
and
you
I was getting called.
You just, you take a hard look in the mirror, all of a sudden you're just like,
I'm the whale.
I'm the whale. What happened, Moby Dick? How did this happen?
No wonder they love me here. Man, everyone's so nice to me. They're buying me dinner. Shit.
All right, well, that segues nicely into our Take a Beat segment that we can wrap on.
Let's take a beat.
All right, I want to take a beat today and discuss when a dream game can turn into a nightmare. We've all been there. It's late. We're stuck small. And we've all been given a hope that this knit fest of a 2-5 game will see a pot over $500 before we die of boredom. As we contemplate the pros and cons of staying versus racking up and enjoying a night alone, Netflixing, chilling, a man in a cowboy hat stumbles his way over, and he spills what looks like a few $1,000s of black chips into the empty seat 9. The dealer informs him it's a 1K cap, but as he attempts to protest between the slurs, we assure him that it's fine, and we'll change the game to 2-5-10, uncapped, just to oblige his gambling desires. Very quickly, the action picks up. The nits are limping, attempting to trap our newfound wounded duck, but he's cagey. He's mixing in limps, along with 15Xs, both of which are bringing differing levels of discomfort to everyone. Blinded by dollar signs in our eyes, we see way too much opportunity to be afraid of what's to come next. Jumping in the mix, we quickly find ourselves in a spot where we're holding pocket 10s, and the maniac has just 3-bet us to 30 big blinds. Our greed drove us to cover him in order to maximize the EV of this unicorn spot, and suddenly that feels like a tremendous error. We're over 500 big blinds effective, and all options feel pretty bad. So we default back to our nature, and we call. An innocuous jack-high disconnected board feels pretty safe. Unfortunately, our cowboy only bets pot, stemming what we can only assume comes from his years of degenning in the PLO underground games in Texas. We're way too high up here. The solver wouldn't allow it. We can't fold yet. The turn pairs bottom pair, and to our relief, it goes check, check. Now the river, as it always does in these spots, that mean the absolute most to us in these scenarios where we're way too at risk, comes the ace of spades. We check, and we're at the mercy of the impulses of a man who can barely see straight. But still, even he knows that this is a good bluff card. All in. The pain of investing nearly 100 big blinds into what now feels like the abyss stings so painfully as we muck our hand in frustration. That sting, however, is minor compared to the rage and fury that fuels our body as 5-high gets windmilled in our faces, and the entire table shares in the celebratory dance on our grave. Everything thereafter becomes a blur. We raise call, check, 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 lose. Check call, check fold, lose. There won't be a showdown for the rest of the night that we aren't involved in. Suddenly, everything suited feels like it's worth seeing 3, Every pot is now 5 ways, and we're in there with suited shit, praying to the gods that we finally flop something and punish the son of a bitch that's reduced us down to this brainless degen that's more interested in winning a game of bingo than actually playing real poker. Eventually, we get our wish. We finally flop a set, and our first huge check raise since before we were blinded with greed and gamble. The turn is a meaningless gut shot, and we continue to charge the vulture that swarmed to the left of our guest and has quietly collected all of the money that we've lost to him. He calls. The river's clean. Finally. This pot's going to get us back to even and back to a state of mind that can actually act with logic and reason. Much like the morning after a really regretful night out in college. Nope, skipped ahead, sorry. All in, the vulture snaps, quickly tabling the nuts and putting us out of our misery. Much like the morning after a really regretful night out in college, we slink away from the table and do the walk of shame home, only to replay the horror that was supposed to be our big break. Every gambler here has gotten swept up in the action. We've turned a dream spot into a nightmare. We all take our eye off the ball from time to time, and in this industry, it can lead to catastrophic outcomes. Remember what we're playing for and the foundations of how to execute on the plan of extracting a sucker from his money. But most importantly, when retelling this story of self-harm and utter destruction, be sure to get the details straight. As a coach and a fellow degen, I know you're lying. To yourself, to your friends, and to anybody who will listen. This level of cope doesn't change a 2 to a 10, and it won't bring back the 10 buy-ins that you've dusted off at this now larger game with the drunken cowboy. You're in a safe place here. You're in the muck. Tell us where it all went wrong. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back at noon tomorrow for a very special Valentine's Day episode. We'll see you guys all then.
Peace.